Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Thanks, you guys that are in the live audience. Sorry, we're just cracking up behind the scenes. So, Carlita, hi, nice to see you. And Mary, thanks for coming in. And Fran, I know that you're a friend of Gina's. So, welcome. Thanks. And I'm sure we'll have other people rolling in pretty soon, too. So today we have another community showcase. It's a member showcase. We have a brand new member, Gina Johnson, who signed up immediately to do one of these showcases, which doesn't usually happen. I normally have to bug people and say, hey, why don't we introduce you to everybody? Just come on, let's do a broadcast. So Gina, thank you for that. Thanks for jumping in. I think that says a lot about you, ready to kind of get yourself out there and connect with people. And that is really the point of what I'm trying to do here is just get people connected. I think that especially with everybody sort of having to isolate and kind of a world that is a little bit divided right now, one of the best things I could possibly do with my time in my life is to try to connect people. So this is really what this effort is about. So for everybody that's in, thanks for being here. And so Gina, we have about 30 minutes. And right now I've got 14 questions for you. And before we get started, I want you to kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your journey. I know that you're kind of new to instructional design. You're starting up. You just started a certificate program on Monday. So talk a little bit about that, but let's hear a little bit more about who you are.
Sure. So by brand new to ID, that's 3 days. So I just started on Monday. And when I got the email that said, hey, would you like to do a video cast? I said, sure, why not? Because maybe the perspective of a really, really, really new person might be helpful for somebody in some way. So that's why I jumped in. But I've had a variety of jobs over the years. I've worked in customer service. I've worked in banking. I've been a retail manager in bookstores, which was wonderful. But the problem for that was I'm not really motivated by money, I guess. And so I would spend a lot of time with individuals. So instead of making a lot of sales, I'm just talking to people about what they read. And they're like, Gina, it would be really great if you could not spend a half an hour with each customer. So it wasn't like, when I look back at where I've been and I look at the fit, it's always been about people. I think that's the thread throughout my life. And so I have found myself teaching people, even when teaching has really nothing to do with my job description whatsoever. So my very first job, I was a client service coordinator at a bank. So it was an administrative assistant kind of position. I answered the phone and so forth. But before I left, I recognized that my coworker relied on me heavily for the technological part of her job. And back then, this was 97. So, we're still working with floppy disks and, computers that are like big and square. And she needed help with Microsoft Word. And I thought, oh, man, I don't know how long it's going to take them to replace me. So I typed a job aid for her. I made her a binder before I left that she could access so that she could still be able to do what she needed to do even when I was gone. So even though I wasn't a teacher, I had that sense of that learning need and a desire to fill it. And so that led on to me teaching high school when I taught high school theater and speech and English. And now I'm teaching communication at a community college, which I really love. Love working with college students. So does that work as an introduction?
That does work as an introduction. I just want to mention Kim is saying that your story is classic, that you found your tribe. And Kim, of course, is a power word user. We've heard that so many times in past episodes. She could probably identify with what you're saying. But I also want to mention, you're an adjunct professor at the University of Southern Maryland, I think it was.
Yes, the College of Southern Maryland.
College of Southern Maryland. And then also, let's see, and we were just talking about one of your undergraduate degrees, which was, it was industrial workplace psychology or something?
Yes, industrial organizational psychology. And the job at the bank was my job after getting that degree.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you were applying some of those skills at the bank that you were working?
Not in a direct way,
Uh-huh.
because again, it was administrative. So I was answering the phone. I may have been thinking in the back of my mind, ooh, what motivates this person? Why do
Right.
they say that person? I wonder, so kind of this commentary in my mind, these mental exercises. But what I gained most from that job was customer service,
Hmm.
because it was a 100% front-facing position. So the telephone skills right off the bat. I
Mhm.
was answering the phone on the first day, and I learned how to write well, business writing, which was very valuable to me. And so every job that I've had, I just try to grab those skills and use them at my next place and try to make my next place better and just build and build and build and build.
Right. Well, I think that, just sort of you coming into instructional design, having some knowledge or, just that background in the instructional organization, I mean, the
We
industrial
call it IO. You
in
can
the
call it
IO.
IO.
Yeah,
IO
that's what it is.
fine.
Just you'll have an ability to kind of assess kind of like the learning environments, just like whether or not, like for me, I worked in manufacturing for a while, and I definitely would notice that some people, like if they were given a conference room to do training in, the results would be very different than if they were in the storage room,
Mm.
in the dark, like windowless storage room, like versus, being in the nice air conditioned
Yeah.
conference room. And I used to make, I used to comment about stuff like that. Well, that's fantastic. I'm very excited for you. And so far, so good with the certificate program.
Yeah. Again, I'm 3 days in. So
So 72
my
hours, not
full-length
bad.
assignment is due Sunday. And I think it's optional. If it's, I don't care. I'll do it anyway, because why not do it? I think I have to apply a learning theory to a learning architecture and then explain what instructional activities I would choose that is in alignment with those. So I'm really excited about that because I love that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Because my favorite time when I teach is actually before the semester starts,
Mm-hmm.
because that's when I have my fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started the drawing board, even though I've taught the same class 40 times.
Yeah.
40 in 8 years.
Wow.
I still go back
Yeah.
and say, okay, what do I want them to know or be able to do?
Yeah.
How am I going to assess that?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to teach them in order for them to perform that successfully?
Yeah.
Because, over time, the assessment might change. I'm always wanting it to be as authentic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got my master's in communication, I am drawing all of that right into my classes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the very next week. I mean, I would get up in front of them and say, hey, I just learned this last week. Now I'm going to teach it to you.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I love about just the whole field of education and training and development is just you can incorporate things right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And directly benefit other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it's really about.
Wow, I think your journey is going to be truly fascinating. I mean, even Kim is making comments about your industrial psychology background. And she says you're light years ahead for L&D. Leverage that big time. It's a superpower.
Thank you.
And Carlita wants to know where you're going for your certificate program. And I thought it was at University of Irvine, or
Yeah, University of California at Irvine.
That's right. That's right. And and I think that particular certificate program has a really good reputation. So congrats on that.
Well, I'll tell you, I learned about it on your podcast.
Oh, okay.
You interviewed Christy Tucker.
That's right.
About grad certificate versus master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so I listened to that and I'm like, and I'm writing it all down because I was making that decision. I had just gotten a master's and I was just going to go right into a second master's.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize there was another option. So I was looking at local schools.
Mm-hmm.
But after listening to that, that was so helpful for me because I realized that I may not even need another master's. A grad certificate would be enough. And through that conversation that you had with her, I learned about what to look for because the programs that I was looking at were more theory-based. And I would not have known to try to find something with practical experience in every class, building to a portfolio.
Wow. Yeah.
And so when she started naming off schools, I'm writing them down and I'm looking them up, and others. This wasn't something I took lightly. And so I spent probably a month going in and comparing programs and looking at a multitude of factors because I wanted the best one for me, because I wanted to be able to just right out of the gate be awesome, saying that I work really hard,
Yeah.
and, so thank you for that. That was one of my
I am gonna definitely have to send Christy a note. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I'm kind of like blushing a little bit because it's like, wow, we're useful. That's awesome.
Yes. Directly useful.
Right. So usually my first question that I ask is like, what are you working on right now? But you just kind of went over that, right? You just, what was again your first assignment, I guess?
I'm working on that. And then for my job, I'm working on fall prep. And, with the pandemic, we're all kind of in this weird place where we have to be ready for everything. So I know that in a split second, it might be, oh, hey, Gina, you're face-to-face on Monday. Because that's pretty much what happened. It was Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we found out you're going fully online. So now that I know that that can happen, I've got all of that going, and so for right now, the plan is real-time technology for an hour a week. So 1 hour a week, they're with me live in some way.
So, Gina, and I have to ask, we do this like twice, 2-3 times a week. We talk about this stuff. I have all these seasoned virtual facilitators and stuff. We're just like a group that's been doing this kind of for a while. I rarely get to hear the story about somebody who isn't an instructional designer talk about how they migrated or how they were able to adjust from going face-to-face to online. Is there any way you can just describe that really quickly, just so that I can hear it?
Yes. Now, I had an excellent frame for this because 99% of my master's was online. So I already had an idea for how to organize the content, what best practices were. And so had I not had that, it would have been much more difficult for me. So my process was I was done teaching at 11:50 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I looked at my students and I said, I don't know when I'll see you again. And I just kind of blew them a kiss and said, hope to see you in May. At that point, I really thought I would see them again, and then as time went on, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to happen. And so I realized that I needed to get them running quickly, because they still had assessments due. And I thought, okay, the content that I was going to give them face-to-face on Monday, they need right now. And so I just sat at the computer, and the first thing I did was test drive the LMS because I had only used it for grades and attendance, maybe, and the syllabus, because that's really all that was required of us. I've always taught face-to-face. So I just started clicking things and saying, ooh, what does this do? And that's how I learned technology. Ooh, what does this do? Ooh, what does this do? And then I just start loading stuff. And so the big challenge for me was the weekly discussions, because that replaces what happens in class. And in class, I do student-generated discussions. So they have a reading journal where they summarize what they've learned, they do extra research, they have a choice of activities, and then they ask questions. And that's discussion. It's all student-led. And I sit back and smile and facilitate and just watch all the loveliness happening. Of course, that all went away. So I had to learn how to adapt the material to e-learning. And I decided I really liked it being student-generated. So I just said, pick a vocabulary word and relate it to your life or the outside world. And I gave them a length and I gave them a rubric, and then they just went. And they got so much deeper into the content than I think we would have had in class. And this is when the shy kids shined. Students that I had never heard say a word are typing these long paragraphs. And what I loved was seeing them get deeper into the material, connecting it to their life and connecting it to the pandemic, and they were helping each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they were using the content to do that. And so I think that deepens the learning, because when you can apply the content to your life,
Mm-hmm.
when you can write correctly in context that shows you know what the word means, and then using the content to help each other,
Mm-hmm.
I would just kind of sit there and like, like I'm grading and I'm like, oh my God, this shy person just wrote this.
Right.
I was just beside myself. So I think the big challenge was just that adaptation from what I've always done face to face, and then finding how can I put this online but still retain the integrity of the assignment itself.
Right.
And then that's the mental process that I work through. So
what were you using to facilitate this, or to the sharing of the content? What kind of tools, or how did that work?
Well, it was all done through the LMS. So at my college, we used My Learning.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a discussions area. And so that's where they were focusing on the vocabulary. And then there are modules. And so I teach thematically. So I will have an essential question that frames, 2 or 3 chapters, and then they respond to that question. And so that module would be just that chunk. Mm-hmm. Maybe 2 or 3 chapters, and then I have the course objectives under that, and I'll say this is what you're going to learn, and then under that I say you will learn how to do this by, and then I list the learning activities, and then they go through it. So I did it asynchronously, and I just next week I'll be done with the class I'm teaching now. It was also asynchronous. So my challenge in the fall is to switch it up again with this real-time technology synchronous portion, because I went from face-to-face to asynchronous, and now I'm going from asynchronous to real-time technology. Wow. But I welcome that, because I get bored very fast. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I'm excited about this field is that there's always something new to learn, because I'm the kind of person, I finish a master's and then I go, what now? Like I've just spent all this time. So I love that I will have the opportunity for learning to be continuous. Mm-hmm. Because with what I'm doing now, it's continuous. I read journals, I keep up on the research, but I still got that same class, And so I'm excited to learn about other fields. I'm excited about working with SMEs, and I'm learning the vocabulary, right. Working with SMEs. And it's just, I think it's going to be so much fun to have that variety. I need a lot of variety, and I really feel like I found my tribe here. I was telling my mom, I'm listening to this podcast and everybody sounds like me. Like they're really enthusiastic and they're funny and they love learning and they love people. And, I feel like I found my people. I feel like I've been searching.
Yeah, you definitely sound like, kind of like the group, this crowd, this particular audience. I love it. Yeah, that's fascinating. Gosh, you're just making my head spin with a lot of this stuff. Carlita's asking, was there an option for you to work with instructional designers or have any additional support when you were building this stuff out?
Yeah. Absolutely. I didn't reach out because I felt like I was okay. And I felt like if I reach a point where I don't know how to move forward, I just thought they are probably losing their minds right now. And they are working with so many people, and I thought they're probably getting inundated. And if I get a point where I'm stuck, I'm going to reach out. And I think I might reach out for the fall now that things have calmed down. Mm-hmm. Because right when we switched, I can only imagine what they went through, because I was okay. I got my grad degree online. Mm-hmm. So again, I had a frame. Right. If I didn't have a frame, I would have reached out to them immediately.
Wow. Okay. Very interesting. So, you talked a little bit about how you got, listening to Christy Tucker and the certificate program, that sort of led you in that direction. But was there anything else? What inspired you to get into instructional design to begin with? Was there something you saw, a project that you were involved in? Like, why did you decide to choose ID?
A couple of things. So I was at a faculty development workshop at my college, which we have every fall. Mm-hmm. And someone gave a presentation and she introduced herself as an instructional designer. And she was teaching us, I think it was cooperative learning. And I thought, that sounds cool. I wonder what that is. And then I got busy and I'm just like, and then I thought, I have skills that are probably transferable.
Mhm.
So I just did this search one day, like what do teachers do when they're not teaching? Kind of like, where do they go? Because a commonly held notion, true or not, is that 50% of teachers leave before year 3 in public school. And I was one of them. I lasted 1 year and I realized it wasn't a good fit. And so I thought, where do all these people go? So literally that was my Google search. Where do people go when they don't teach anymore? And somehow Christy Tucker's blog came up. Maybe I typed the words transition to teaching. There was something that grabbed a keyword in one of her articles.
Yeah.
And so I just started clicking and I'm like, And I didn't really do much because I thought, can I learn all of this technology? I think it's fun, but can I really learn all this? So I kind of waited and waited. But then with the pandemic, when I went right into e-learning immediately, and I thought, I love this. You mean it could just be this? Because public speaking is really tiring. I mean, I'm really good at it, but I need a nap when I'm done. Mm-hmm. I just thought, so I just started clicking on stuff and clicking and reading. And then I found the podcast for your show as a link on her site. Mm-hmm. And that led me to you. Mm-hmm. And then I just kind of went from there. And whenever I see a list of recommended books, I start reading them. Mm-hmm. So I read The Accidental Instructional Designer, which I loved. Mm-hmm. And now I'm reading Design for How People Learn. And I love the whole elephant metaphor. That is awesome and very true. Mm-hmm. I think people do need novelty. They need some variety in order to learn. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
I love it. Wow. Okay. So yeah, that's great. This is such an interesting conversation to me. So you're talking about you're staying up to date, like reading books, podcasts. How about as far as like tools and stuff? Like, how are you working through that?
I am planning to dabble, but I know that the authoring tools have free trials, and I'm going to have a course in authoring software next. Mm-hmm. So probably in September. So I'm kind of waiting so that I can make use of those free trials when I'm creating content for my classes. Mm-hmm. I haven't really done a whole lot, but I have been using Lynda a lot. So I've been watching videos on Captivate. Basically what I did was I looked at my area, which is Washington, D.C., and I spent an afternoon clicking on job descriptions and writing down what they want, what tools they want. And then I matched that to graduate programs to make sure I would learn what they want. And it was about 50-50 with Captivate and Articulate. So, I'll learn them both. I also saw Lectora mentioned and Camtasia mentioned. And so I'm just going to work my way through. The one thing I'm not sure about, and please help me, do I need to know how to code? And if so, how deep into those waters do I get? Because I've started learning HTML. It's time consuming. I've got so many other things to learn. Can you help me prioritize the tech a little bit?
Yeah, I that's a great question. And if anybody else wants to like chime in on this, I would totally appreciate it. But for myself personally, I don't think that learning to code in HTML is a critical thing. If more than anything, like if you could dive into Captivate and into Storyline and just sort of get a handle on both of those to be able to build things, that would be good. But knowing HTML will let you, like fine tune certain things. You'll be able to, in both systems, I believe, especially when you output stuff. It will really help if you know HTML.
Okay.
And you don't need to know it at a level where you can build, full on, website from scratch. You just need to, kind of know, and just even basic coding practices are just a really, really helpful thing. And Fran is asking, what is Storyline? Fran, Storyline is made by a company called Articulate, and it's just kind of a, what do you call those things like Captivate?
Authoring
yeah,
tool?
It's just like an authoring tool for building courses. Let's see. Kim is saying, check out Icon Logic and Kevin Siegel's stuff regarding Captivate and Storyline. His company's online courses are fantastic. You really come out knowing how to make a course. And
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And Carlita's saying in the beginning, identify what your niche will be, then go from there. And it's true. Like, if you are someone that wants to focus more on development, then, HTML might be higher on your list. But I think as you go through the certificate program, especially, you'll probably get a better idea of what you want to prioritize. I know that Joe Ganshi lives in the DC area. He is probably one of the, foremost authoring tools experts out there, and he shows up regularly in TLDC. And he's also a wonderful, wonderful man. So I'd be happy to make an introduction if you'd like.
Sure.
Yeah. So okay, well that's great. Let me pick another question here. So you have this really, really fantastic background that is kind of like feels like it's just been funneling you towards instructional design.
Propelling.
I know. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Propelling is
I had no idea at the time until I got here, and I'm like, yes.
What other jobs have you worked? Especially for somebody, it seems like you get kind of bored rather easily when, like as far as your professional skill sets are concerned. Like what other things what other jobs have you worked?
One of my favorite jobs, of course, other than what I'm doing right now, because being with college students, they are so amazing and so funny. And, I had a great time when I was a trade book manager at the Georgetown University bookstore. So I did book signings and I made displays. They were so pretty. And it was wonderful. I was autonomous. And I got to use a little bit of technology in the job. I had to learn their systems and so forth. And a lot of it was relationship building. That's where I really learned how to build relationships. I had to make sure that the faculty was happy because, they're at the top of their field and they are publishing stuff all the time. And oh my gosh, if they came into the store and their book was not on the table, I heard about it. Mm-hmm. And that happened once. So after that, their books were put, in fact, I moved it to the front. Here you go. They're all right there. And I the president's administrative assistant, I had to build a good relationship with her because he was always ordering special gifts for people from the store, but also building relationships with student organizations. Mm-hmm. Because I learned very quickly that if I sponsored an event myself, nobody came. So even though I tried to advertise, we weren't allowed to email students directly because that was considered spam. So I was kind of limited in how I could let people know something was happening. But I learned that if I made friends with the students, they would say, oh, I'm part of this club, we'll sponsor it. And then I would just show up with the books. And there was wine and cheese. And I'm like, I'm getting paid to do this. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It was amazing. I loved the relationship building that I got to do in that job. I got close to a lot of people. In fact, I got really close to my boss, mm-hmm. who was fantastic. He let me have my autonomy. Mm-hmm. He just trusted me to do my job. Yeah. But I remember I left because it was about an hour and a half commute and my daughter was 2. Mm. And she was growing up without me. Yeah. And that was very hard. So on the day I told him I was leaving, he said, are you ready to see a grown man cry? Oh. And I'm like, no, but my daughter needs me. I mean, I felt terrible. Yeah. But it was such a wonderful experience. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I absolutely loved that job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, kudos to you for making that decision. I know how hard that can be. I've had to make that same kind of decision in the past as well, but yeah, fantastic. Let's see, we've got just a couple more minutes left. Let me see what else. So now that you're getting, let's see, this isn't really a great question. I was going to ask you when it comes to instructional design, well, basically the question is, how would your best friend describe what you do for a living? But you're not actually an instructional designer now. And that question is mostly meant for people that, that are kind of seasoned instructional designers and people don't know what they do. So let's see, is there a way that we can twist that I mean, what do you think instructional designers do at this point?
From what I've learned so far, they meet with stakeholders and they find out who needs the training and why. And they write learner objectives that are in line with business goals, because that's the measure of success. And so they make sure that they're clear about that. And then maybe they go and do some research on their own about the content, interview the SME, get a sense of how to shape the content, and then ask a lot of really important clarifying questions like, yes, you want them to know like these 90 PowerPoint slides, but what will they do? And how will this help them do their job better? Or if there's one thing that you want them to do at the end of this, what would that be? And so I think, questioning like that just to clarify and winnow down so that the training is focused on the immediate need. And also looking at what do they already know, and then what is the finish line, and then the training is how they get there, to try to figure out that's what the training is. And then taking that and moving that into design and development, what is the best, what is needed here? If we have people that, if the learners already know a lot, maybe it's just a job aid, or maybe it's just, this. But if we have brand new people and we're onboarding people, I did this kind of thinking recently at my college for adjunct onboarding. They asked me, and I said, well, you're treating us like a homogeneous group, and we're not. If you've got a high school teacher, she needs a key to the door and the copier code. If you have somebody that's never taught before, they need methods. They need to know what to do on the first day.
Yeah.
And so, look at the needs of your audience, and then design the message and the channel for that. And that's my whole comm background that's
right.
coming in there. And so then, okay, back to that. Okay, so then in the development stage, there's, designing the tools and trying to figure out what tool is best.
Yeah.
And knowing what the tools are, and knowing what the options are, and should there be multimedia and graphics and audio, and then there are tools to do all of that, and then implementing it and seeing, how does it go, and then evaluation, which ideally happens at each step, because you don't want to wait till the end and then go, oh, wow, that didn't work. So, you want to look at that throughout.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Gina, that's pretty good for 3 days. I would love to hear what anybody else in the live audience, what your feedback would be, but I think she's got it down. But for 3 days, you've definitely done your research. I want to read a couple of comments here that Kim posted. She said, Gina's a wonderful example of blooming where you're planted. And she also asked, she says, it seems like you're an extrovert. How have you been doing during shutdown, during the pandemic? Sounds like you've been okay.
One of your questions is, what is the biggest misconception about you?
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I just love people, and I'm very friendly. And that's why face-to-face teaching was a challenge for me. And that's why high school almost killed me, because the bell was always ringing and they were always coming in, and I didn't have time to think. Yeah. But yes, I'm okay. And thank you.
No, great answer. It's the same here. It's like
I'm actually introverted, but I did not know that for a very long time. I thought that introversion and extroversion was about how shy you are. So I assumed that I was an extrovert because I'm not really especially shy. But then when I read more and learned it's about where you get your energy, when I'm in interactions with people, I'm giving my energy to them. Extroverts get their energy from people. So when I'm teaching face-to-face, back to back to back, and I'm giving and giving and giving all of that energy away. When class is over, I go right to Panera, I order a chai, I'm at a quiet table, I've got my book, and I find myself again.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can explain it based on the reading that I've done. I know there are different ways of looking at it, but that was a way that resonated with me and made sense to me, because I thought, if I'm an extrovert, why was teaching high school so hard for me? Like, why was I so tired? Why was I so stressed? I loved my content. I loved the kids. This should fit. And I was very confused and down for a long time, because it didn't go together.
Yeah.
And with this alternate definition, I thought, okay, I need a backstage.
Right. I'd never heard that definition before. So, and that's really helpful for me because I'm the same way. I mean, if it were up to me, doing a live broadcast is actually really, really difficult for me. But, I just love people and I really do want to help people connect. So last question. If you were interviewing yourself for this broadcast, is there a question that you would ask yourself?
Mm-hmm. I would say, what is your core value? Because that tells you a lot about a person. Mm-hmm. That's never been asked to me, but I think I would ask that to people.
Okay.
Because then, and I'm thinking, I mean, when you're getting to know someone like we're doing here, that's a different purpose than maybe, of course, a job interview or interviews for other reasons. But I think if you really want to know someone, ask them what their core value is, because that tells you what's important to them. And if everything else in their life is driven by that and you know what that is, I think that might be a very quick way of knowing somebody.
Okay, I am going to add this one really quick to the QA section. So what is your core value?
Are you asking them or me?
You. I'm asking you, what is your core value?
Service.
Ah, I love it. That's excellent.
Yeah, anything that I do, it's for other people.
That is great.
I feel like if the people that I'm serving are not successful, I am not successful.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Gina, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for doing this today. I'm so
nice to meet you. I've been listening to your voice for 3 months, and this is kind of surreal. Yeah. I've got to tell you, because I put it on right before I go to bed to help me relax.
Yeah.
And feel connected, because during the pandemic, I've had a hard time sleeping. It's just like everybody, it's stressful. Yeah. And it's really helped me. You've got this soothing, warm voice. I just like.
Oh my God!
We'll listen to Louise now.
Well, thanks, Gina. I'm starting to sweat a little bit, but yeah, wonderful. I love it. Where can people connect with you online?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Gina_BKS for Gina Books.
Excellent. Okay. Let's see. If you want, can you type that into the chat, and we'll get that in there. I do want to mention Fran had posted something. She said self-reflection is such an important part of teaching, and
she taught me that.
Yeah, and I cannot agree more. That is such an important thing. And when we did have a live event, when we were putting together conferences, we always tried to make sure that we had some time for reflection. And so Fran, definitely. Gina, thanks again. Thanks so much for doing this. If you need anything at all, let us know. Let's see. Nick is saying new tagline for TLDC: relaxing voices to inspire the community. Maybe that's going to be my.
That is awesome. It's very zen. I don't even know if that's the right use of that word at all. It just
Oh my gosh, this is too much. Okay, I'm going to be clipping some of this and posting it online. So everybody, thanks for coming in. Enjoy the rest of your evening or day, wherever you are. Gina, thanks again. And remember, Friday, we've got Devlin Peck coming up. He's talking about how to be an instructional designer in 2020. He is somebody, sign up for that one as soon as you can, because I think my rooms typically have 100-person limit and live person limit, and we're at 82 signed up already. So that one will probably fill out. So if you guys have the time, join us on Friday. And Gina, again, thank you so much. And we'll see you around. Email me anytime. Love talking to you. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.